We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset, including you will be very upset. But that's just gotten to me some information that the killing has stopped, that the executions have stopped. They're not going to have an execution.
The statement you just heard from President Donald Trump took place after the US government advised personnel at the US military base in Qatar to evacuate. And now this is the largest military base in the Middle East. It has about 10,000 US personnel there. And after that announcement was made, you hear this statement from Donald Trump, and some people thought, well, maybe we're not going to strike Iran. Maybe the escalating tensions have finally calmed down. But that does not appear to be the case. And this isn't the first time President Trump would be bluffing. As we all know, he made it seem as though he was engaging in nuclear negotiations with Iran before striking its nuclear sites. And right now, as this story develops, it's developing as I'm on air at this moment. You have Douglas Macgregor writing in. He used to be Trump's foreign policy advisor. Unfortunately, he no longer is, but he has alerted everyone to the fact that 6 US tankers have taken off from that US military base from Qatar toward Iran. You also have the airspace over Iran completely cleared. Apparently, there was a United Airlines flight that was supposed to go from Newark to Israel. And as it began taking off, it actually turned back, and passengers were informed that the flight was entirely canceled. That's according to I-24 News, by the way, which is an Israeli outlet. So at this very moment, it is not 100% sure, so I want to be very clear with everybody. But from the signs that I'm seeing, it does appear that the United States intends to strike Iran. Now, the execution that Trump was likely referring to was that of a 26-year-old by the name of Irfan Soltani, who was allegedly going to be executed in Iran today for his part in the demonstrations. However, later news came out that Iran was going to delay or hold off on that execution. But now I'm wondering if the United States does aim to strike Iran, what happens to that 26-year-old? I have no idea. And we're in the fog of war, okay? We're getting conflicting reports in regard to the number of people who have been killed in Iran. I have no doubt that the number at this point is in the thousands, but for those who are claiming that 20,000, I was on a Piers Morgan panel today, a woman claimed there were 70 to 80,000 people who have been killed in 3 days. I'm gonna need some actual evidence for that before I regurgitate it on this show. But there's no question that the Iranian regime has treated the protesters with brutality. There are some reports that there are different factions at war with one another within Iran. We know that some security forces have also been killed. We don't know exact numbers though, and I don't want to make the mistake of simply regurgitating something that might be propaganda. Here's what we do know though. The New York Times earlier today was already asking about military assets that the Trump administration plans to use against Iran. And here's what they know, here's what they found. If Trump orders military strikes against Iran, his options are somewhat limited. Last fall, the Pentagon sent the carrier Gerald R. Ford and other escort warships from the Eastern Mediterranean to the Caribbean. So remember, our hostilities with Venezuela, really a one-way hostility toward Venezuela, has led to Trump sending quite a few of our military assets to the Caribbean. So that's what they're referring to here. Even so, they write, the Navy has 3 missile-firing destroyers in the Middle East region now, including the Roosevelt, which in recent days has steamed into the Red Sea, military officials said on Wednesday. The Navy also has at least 1 missile-firing submarine in the region, Pentagon officials said. And if you are under the assumption that President Donald Trump is very concerned about the protesters themselves, even though he aided and abetted the mass slaughter of innocents, mostly women and children in Gaza. I just don't know how you convince yourself of that. So possible targets, writes the New York Times, first strike include Iran's nuclear program, going beyond the US airstrikes that battered it in June and ballistic missile sites, US officials have said. So they're going after Iran's military capabilities, which have been a priority for Israel. I don't know how that helps the protesters, but okay, that's what we're dealing with. Anyway, the Times reports that any attack is at least several days away. Don't worry, it's several days away. But again, based on the movements that we've been seeing just in the last hour, it does appear that a strike is likely. And again, I don't know the extent of these military operations that are likely to be carried out very soon. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the other reports that came out prior to the latest developments, because I think it's kind of important to understand some of what's been going on the ground in Iran. So Tamir Morag, who is an Israeli journalist, he actually works for Channel 14 in Israel, that happens to be a Likud-linked outlet, had posted this, which was really fascinating, because you got to keep in mind, the Iranian people are not armed, right? So they don't really have any weapons to protect themselves or to fight back against the regime. But there have been around 133, there could be more security forces who have been killed. So the real question is, how? How did they kill them? And turns out this reporter might give us some answers, Israeli reporter. He writes that, we reported tonight on Channel 14, foreign actors are arming the protesters in Iran with live firearms, which is the reason for the hundreds of regime personnel killed. Everyone is free to guess who is behind it, kind of being cheeky there. Then there's Tamir Heyman, who is the former head of the Israeli military intelligence, literally admitting that there is a very significant influence operation by the United States in Iran. And while speaking to an Israeli paper known as Ma'ariv, Heyman said the following: if the question is there zero operation right now? The answer is no, because there is already an operation. There is currently a very significant influence operation by the US, referring to the current unrest happening in Iran. By the way, this is a good time to pause and just say, the protesters who are out there, like, I don't want anyone to think that, oh, this whole protest is totally manufactured and the people of Iran are super happy with the regime. That is not the case, and that is not what I would ever say on this show, okay? That's just not rooted in reality or fact. Organic protests have occurred. I feel, based on evidence that I'm sharing with you, that those organic protests in Iran against the regime, and I've got no love for the regime, were co-opted by foreign actors. And I am worried about that because the people of Iran deserve to decide who leads them, period. They don't deserve a foreign actor to come in and install a monarch. They don't deserve a foreign actor to come in and meddle with their business at all. Now, I understand that some Iranians want the US to get involved because of the fact that it's going to take more than these protests and demonstrations to overthrow the regime. Although the Ayatollah was able to overthrow the Shah without US involvement. So anyway, but let's get to some more details here. Here's more of what Tamir Heyman, again, the former head of Israeli military intelligence, had to say. Simply put, an influence effort is an effort that operates primarily in the cyber realm and in the realm of local disruption and subversion, and there are some. Then he acknowledged that US sanctions were the cause, this is very important, were the cause of the economic issues that in Iran that sparked the initial protests, which are apparently being exploited by American and Israeli intelligence, saying there is the attempt, as we heard tonight from Trump, that this is a path of negotiation with the Americans, that this is really the only thing that can save the Iranian economy, the lifting of sanctions. So the protest did begin, and this is how it was initially reported. It began with anger toward the regime due to economic frustration. That economic frustration was manufactured in main part due to the US implementing sanctions against Iran. So Let's also remember that former Secretary of State and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo said Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. And the Israeli Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu said, and I'm quoting, "When we attacked in Iran during Rising Lion, we were on its soil and knew how to lay the groundwork for a strike. I can assure you that we have some of our people operating there right now." So while I want nothing more than for the Iranian people to be free, I am worried about where their government is going to end up, what their leadership will turn out to be, basically. Because one thing that I do know for sure is they don't want foreign interference in regard to what their government becomes. But nonetheless, doesn't really matter what anyone really cares about or what anybody desires. Really, the countries with the military might are going to have their way. And I think that's going to play out here. So days ago, Amir Avivi, who is the founder of the IDF and retired IDF Brigadier General, kind of gave the game away. I mean, it's kind of amazing how open, overt they are when it comes to these issues, because the Jerusalem Post had a conference about 6 days ago, and I thought that his statements were pretty telling. Let's take a look.
Another fight with Iran and Hezbollah and possibly the Houthis is imminent. And today I can say something we couldn't have said a month ago. This regime is going down. There will be no Iranian regime. And this is going to change entirely the future of Israel.
Happen? Can you describe us? It will be an American attack. It will be an Israeli-American attack.
So I think it's going to be an American-led attack with the assistance of Israel. And Israel prepared for a preemptive attack. But as Israel was preparing for a preemptive attack that might have happened even today, the demonstration started, and a clear message for President Trump: we are not going to let you shoot these demonstrators. We are going to defend them. And indeed, I think that we'll see in the very near future a massive American attack with the help of Israel and with the demonstrators. I think this regime stands no chance, and they will fall. And I can tell you, as I said, the bigger the win will be, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after.
So the individual that Israel hopes to install in place of the Iranian regime is the former Shah's son, the Shah that was ousted, of course, during the Islamic Revolution. His son's name is Reza Pahlavi. And Pahlavi was actually recently in Israel and has made it abundantly clear that he intends to be Iran's transitional leader, meaning that the West is going to install him, and allegedly he's going to help transition the country to a democratic process, which I don't trust personally. Typically, when someone finds themselves in an extreme position of power, it is unlikely that they will just willy-nilly give it up. But I'm hoping to be proven wrong. I'm hoping to be proven wrong about all of my predictions on this. And most importantly, the only people who actually matter, not the United States. I mean, obviously I care about the United States for my own purposes, but in the case and in the context of Iran, the only people who matter are the people of Iran. Now, the Washington Post, which put out a piece today about the warring factions, within these demonstrations, talked a little bit about the lack of popularity for Reza Pahlavi. So about 1/3 of Iranians would like him to be the transitional leader. 1/3 absolutely do not want him, and then the rest are uncertain. So we'll see how this all plays out. But one thing that I know for sure is anyone who objects to US involvement in Iran gets bullied, coerced, and threatened. And I think a perfect example of that is how Cenk Uygur was treated when he was on Piers Morgan's show just yesterday. Let's take a quick look at that.
These protests are legitimate and have nearly toppled the regime. That's wonderful. I don't like this regime. Let them keep going. But the minute you bomb them, first of all, they're going to lose all credibility on the ground, the protesters are. The regime is going to love that action. They're going to use that to rally the Iranian people to their side. It is going to be deeply counterproductive. productive.
We have a leader. We have His Royal Highness King Reza Pahlavi, who has he's heeded the call of the Iranian people. He is going to be stepping in as a transitional leader.
She keeps pretending to speak for the Persian people. There's been no vote. She doesn't represent any of them. So some do like the Shah. I don't dispute that. I think that they're very, very mistaken in that. There's some earnest people who believe that. And then there's people who work for Israel who say, yeah, he's a perfect puppet for Israel and he should be. And then Chuck says, oh, well, the UAE also wants him gone and Turkey wants Iran gone. Why do I care about those countries?
You're
I don't care about those countries. I care about us. Can I ask Rob one last question? Rob, you're military. You were Navy SEAL Team 6.
No one even in Iran
how many military? Hold on. Let me ask Rob a question. Let me ask Rob a question. Hey, is Israeli puppet? Hold on a second. Can I ask Rob a question?
Don't talk over each other.
Israeli puppet.
Don't talk over each other, please.
Hey, Rob.
You might have missed that after she started, I guess, threatening him in Farsi. She's then switched back up to English and said, when the regime is done, then we're going to come after you guys, don't worry. Seems like there's a certain kind of person that's rooting for the installation of a monarch that, tend to really love messing around with specific threats like that. It's pathetic. Anyway, my heart is with the Iranian people. They deserve a government that represents them. They deserve a government that they choose, and they deserve freedom. And once we get some clarity on just how many people have been killed, obviously I'm gonna share those numbers with you. There's just too much fog and too much contradiction in the way these stories are being reported right now. There's over 2,000 deaths from the reports that I trust a little more, but it's very likely that there could be more people who have been killed as a result of these demonstrations and the regime's response to them. Or on top of that, there have been some rioters who have carried out acts of violence as well. So security forces have been killed. But once we have more clarity on that, I'll share those numbers with you. It's just a terrible situation on the ground. And as we all know, Iran shut down its internet. So it's difficult to get confirmed actual reporting from the ground.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.